Good afternoon, for Catherine.
Hello, Catherine. Good afternoon.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Everybody,
Hello, good afternoon.
good afternoon.
And good morning to you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Kathleen.
Good afternoon, Nachirvan. I feel like we're practicing language. Like, wait, is it morning or afternoon?
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes.
Oh. Well, I got a message from Adnan. I think he's not going to be able to join us in the sessions anymore because he's still busy moving.
Oh.
All right.
So that's a shame, but that's okay. I'm glad he let me know. And there's a couple of other people who won't be able to join us just for today, and then they'll be here in the future. And let's see, we have a couple of people still joining us. I'm wondering if anyone who has not yet volunteered as an assistant would like to volunteer to assist in Zoom and WhatsApp.
It is okay on Zoom.
Great, thank you, Hussein. So you're going to be my assistant on Zoom. I might have a couple of different tasks for you today. But first off, definitely, if you could help monitor the chat and let me know if any questions or problems come up. Is anyone interested in monitoring the WhatsApp group?
I can't do it.
Great, thank you, Mohammed. Awesome. All right.
Excuse me, Kathleen.
Mm-hmm.
There are two, Maria and Sana. They're asking for the link, I guess, in the WhatsApp group.
Ah.
And Hosan sent it, actually, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
thank
they sent
you.
it already.
Yeah, you know. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Hosan and Hakar. Thank you for doing that. Great. So I think everybody's got it. Well, last week, is Thana here right now? No. Well, last week, Thana, I believe, mentioned to me that exams are coming up, at least at her university, and that she was interested in having a unit on online assessments right now before the exams. I think they're starting tomorrow. Do you have exams this weekend? I see
yes.
Yes. For us, we have finished the exams and we're going to start a new semester this week.
Well, actually, this is our second semester, so we are going to do midterm exam.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So it's different. It depends on the college and the university.
Yeah, and the university.
Yeah, it depends. So we are not all together.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, this is so interesting to me. So in the US, for the most part, semesters begin in January and end in like April or May or June, usually May. What is the semester like across Iraq? When does it begin and end?
Well, in Kurdistan region, North Iraq, the winter one starts in September, at the beginning of September, and the spring one starts at the end of February.
Oh,
Yes, the same for me.
Miss Catherine,
The same
I
too.
think Sana have problem. She cannot access the Zoom.
that's, let's see. Oh no. All right. Thank you. That's and then Hussein, are you monitoring the WhatsApp group? Can
Me,
you?
Muhammad, yes.
Oh wait, so hold on. Hussein is monitoring Zoom and Mohammed. Sorry, I wrote the wrong thing next to your name when I wrote that down earlier.
Good.
Mohammed, can you
Yes.
give Thana the passcode? Oh, for some reason, everyone that I know in my life is texting me right now. It's 7 o'clock in the morning here. I don't know why people are texting me, but it's interrupting all of the WhatsApp.
Because you're online, this is why. They've seen you online.
I think so.
This happens to me too.
So Mohammed, if you look at the email, or actually, I think she might need the password. Oh yeah, you got it. I hope she comes. I hope she comes because this is definitely like, I think in response to a conversation that I had with her. So yeah, Mohammed, if she still has trouble getting in, please let me know, because that's an issue. Okay, so you described a little bit the Kurdistan region. And how about for you, those of you in Baghdad? When
Yes.
does your semester begin and end?
Not only in Baghdad, for the rest of the country. Well, we have different, systems. We have course study in which we have two courses. The first course starts at, in September, or even in October, and ends in January. This is the first course. Second course starts the mid of February and ends at the end of May. So this is the course study. Most of universities follow these things. I mean, from Baghdad and other universities. This is the system that we follow just now. We don't have semester study. We have course study. Yeah, course study. Rather than semester study. Yeah, in which we have two final examinations. One in January and the other in June. This is normally what we have, but due to the circumstances that we have for Corona, we have some sort of delay, and that's why this year, the beginning of the first course starts in the 6th of December. Instead of October, and that's why we have some sort of delay.
Interesting.
And we about just to finish. Yeah, we just finished the first course, and we are going to start the second course at the end of April, which ends at the end of July. So this is some sort of delay, by the way. It comes, with the recent circumstances, because there is some sort of cutoff of the, let me say, face-to-face learning and the change to online learning. So this causes some sort of delay. Especially this year.
Interesting. All right. So it seems to me like a lot of you probably just finished online assessments, or are going to begin them very soon.
No, we have some sort of differences here. I'm working in University of Babylon. You know Babylon?
Yes.
University of Babylon. Yeah. We have two types of examination: online examination and what we call hall examination, or let me say face-to-face examination, at hall examination. So we have two types of examination. We finish with online examination, and on Sunday we are going to have the other type of examination, that is hall examination, in which students will exist at college and they are going to be examined at college rather than just to be online. So we have two types, or let me say paper, if we say paper examination. Paper examination will start on Sunday. And with this, we have very limited materials, very limited, let me say, subjects just to, the subject will be divided, some for online and the other paper examination. Paper examination will start on Sunday and it will take 10 days. So all in all, we are going to start the second course at the end of April.
All right. So
let me say, detailed information about the examination.
well, it fits in very well with the theme. Sorry, I'm noticing, I don't know why Thana still is unable to get in. Mohammed, I see you're sending that to her again.
Yes, I send it her.
Okay, I'm just going to take 1 second and I'm going to post the login information as well to our Google Classroom so she can find it there. So sorry, just one moment while I do that. I mean, everyone else was able to join, so I'm concerned maybe she's having an internet connectivity issue. So you might want to ask her that, Mohammed. In the meantime, just let me April 9th.
She received it, I think.
Oh, great. Is she here?
I think the meeting is scheduled for, no.
Can you tell her that if she goes to the Google Classroom, so you sent it to her email, I've posted it to the Google Classroom. If that doesn't work, I'm not sure, but Mohammed, while you do that, I'm going to just explain kind of how we're going to begin today. So if everyone could navigate to the Google Classroom, we're going to begin with a free writing. And after that, I will give a lecture basically on online assessments. So first, I'm just going to share my screen. When you come to Google Classroom, I just put this link for Thana up at the top. But if you navigate down into April 9th and 10th, you'll find the first activity is called free writing activity. And when you come down and click it, it will open a Google Doc. So I'm going to wait until everybody navigates there. I'm going to check out how Thana is doing. Mohammed, any news?
I messaged her personally on her iPhone. I think she is not response still.
Interesting. So I see her saying, this meeting is scheduled to start 2 a.m. That's strange.
Welcome, baby.
Okay. Okay, so while you're there, can you just take a look and read the instructions? I'm gonna go ahead and message Thana a little bit more.
Excuse me, Kathleen.
Mm-hmm.
Can we go on the free writing document and do it until you figure out the thing with Thana?
Yeah, but is everyone there? Is anyone having problems accessing?
I don't know. I already accessed it, so.
Great. So if you're there, yeah, what you're gonna do is you're gonna find your name in this table.
Sure, yeah.
And then there are 3 prompts.
3 questions to answer.
Mm-hmm. And you're gonna take 10 minutes, maybe a little less than 10 minutes now, because this has taken up some time, and you're going to write your responses to the question. So I'm going to help. Mohammed, actually, why don't you go ahead and focus on the free writing activity? And while you're doing that, I'm going to message Thana. If you have any questions, I'm still here. I'm not going to go anywhere. So you can just speak to me and I'll help with issues with the table. If you can't find your name, there are some blank rows at the bottom.
Okay.
Well, may I ask about question number 1?
Mm-hmm.
What questions or concerns would you like assistance with an area of online assessment? Assistance from whom?
Me.
Yeah.
Oh, Thana, you're here. This is wonderful. Mohammed, thank you so much for helping to figure that out. So Thana, if you come to classwork.
Good afternoon. Thanks for your effort.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I don't know why you weren't allowed in.
Maybe it's bad internet connection. I don't know why. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So if you come to our Google Classroom, and then go to classwork, at the top under April 9th and 10th activities, you can see this free writing activity. If you can come down here and find your name, your names are in alphabetical order. There are these 3 questions for you to consider. The first one is, what do you want some help with in terms of online assessment? The second one is, what tools have you used and how did they work out? Did it go well? Did it go poorly? And the third is, what kind of assessments did you use in your courses prior to the pandemic? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to let you work.
Kathy, sorry for interrupting you, but what about those who do not have any online assessment, just like University of Slimani? We have quizzes, we have simple assignment, but for the test and assessing the students for the exam, we have face-to-face exam only.
That's fine. So I think the quizzes that you're talking about are definitely a kind of assessment. So you can think about those. It doesn't have to be like a big final exam. Today, we're going to talk about those two different types of assessments.
Thank you.
And if anybody is not currently teaching, you can just think about your questions or how you used to assess prior to the pandemic. I'm going to give you 2 more minutes to finish up your writing. And if you finish, you can look through the document at what other people have written.
Maybe more than 2 minutes.
You need to, okay. You can take until 2:25.
All right, thank
So
you.
Kathy, sorry, Kathy, but I can't write because I'm with you on cell phone and I'm outside Suleimani. So now I can't write the.
Oh, that's okay. You can have, do you have like a piece of pen and a paper?
Yeah, I can write and take a picture, then post it. Do you mean something like this?
I think just for now, this is really just to get your ideas flowing. So you can write that down for yourself.
Yeah.
Later, when you have a better internet connection, you can come and add them to the document.
Okay, I will.
So for now, you can just take the notes.
Okay.
You can write them in the
I
chat
already
box.
finished my answer.
So then
But
you
I don't
can.
know, you are going to review all the answers one by one? We need that, but.
So.
Is it possible to review my answers and just to see, because question number 1 is related to you. You are going to assist me.
Right. So I'll talk about that in a second. But what I'd like you to do if you're finished is to look through the other people's comments. So until 7:25, let's go ahead and do that. Did somebody else have a question or?
No, I was just suggesting for Jihan to write in the chat box if she would like to share her ideas so that we can see.
Oh, yes, she could do that as well. She could. She could. Okay, Ahmed, I'm looking at your questions now. Can you put these across the table so that number 1 goes in the first box, but then number 2 goes in the middle box, and number 3 goes in the third box?
Okay, dear Kathleen, if you don't mind, just try to help me. I can't write.
Interesting. Who's speaking to me right now?
Wafa.
Okay, Wafa El Tamimi. Are you in the Google Doc on a computer?
No, I'm on the phone, on cell phone.
Just like me.
Yeah, it's harder to do this on a cell phone. Do you have the Google Doc app installed on your phone?
Yes.
And it's still not letting you write?
Yes.
So I think there's probably 2 possible issues. One is that you're having a connectivity issue, and then the other possibility is just that it's harder to use Google Docs on your phone. So like Jian, you can take some notes, on a piece of paper, and you can add them later on. Yeah. Or as Wafa, our other Wafa, I think, suggested, you could type them in the chat.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So it's 7:25, and in our doc, I see a lot of good questions. Now, you can always return to this and add things later. Ahmed asked a question about, can I go through all of these questions and answer them? Well, so yes and no is my answer to that. This is a way to, in communicative language teaching, what we call activate students' schema. So it's to get them thinking about what is the topic that you're going to discuss so that their minds are engaged and they're already applying what we're going to do to their own individual teaching context and practice. But in addition, this serves a practical purpose, right? It shows me as the quote teacher, what do my students already know? What is most relevant for them to learn? So I've been looking through these, and several of them are already addressed in the lecture that I'm about to give. For the ones that aren't addressed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take note of them. And because this is a Google Doc, it's always here. I can return to this as I plan future lectures. So I will address these questions, but I'm not going to go through the whole document right now.
I believe that with the question one, most of the participants ask the same question. If you go through them, you are going to see the same thing. You see subjective test, essay, examination, all these things. If you go through them, you are going to see they are asking you to assist us about this type of a question. How can we assess subjective test in online? I mean, how can we put a key answer and then the correction will be done automatically online with subjective. With MCQ, it's okay. We don't have any argue about these things. But how about subjective test? How about essay test? I believe that if you can answer just now, you are going to help us all.
But despite your belief, Mr. Hamza, I am not going to answer you now. So I'm gonna go ahead with my lecture, and then we'll come back to these at the end, okay? Just to make sure that we have time to do everything. And we will talk about that together in the end. I promise you, we will. But right now we're following, right, a communicative approach to teaching. So I'm gonna, and actually what I'm doing is not very communicative, saying, no, I am not answering your question now. But I'm gonna follow this approach. So we've activated schema, and now we're going into the lecture portion of the lesson, where many of these questions will definitely be addressed. And some things before I can answer that question have to be addressed about, well, the answers to these are different in different contexts. If you're using Moodle, if you're using Google Classroom, if you're using Canvas or Blackboard or ELC, there are different answers. So there's not one answer to all of these questions. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to play from current slide. Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
All
okay.
right. So here we've got free writing brainstorm. This is what we just did. Oh, actually, let me just go back to the objectives. So the objectives of this weekend really is to explore online assessment options and share your own ideas and approaches for assessing students' work online. So our agenda, we've got already our volunteer assistant, our free writing brainstorm. Then we're going to do a presentation on online assessment with some interactive components. And after that, we'll debrief. And I have a very specific way of debriefing today that kind of draws on this tool of assessments online. So there are two basic categories of online assessment. And this came up in an earlier question, right? Of, I'm just using quizzes. I'm not really giving final exams. We do those in person. Well, that plays to these two types of online assessment, formative and summative. And this isn't just online, right? These are the two broad categories of assessment. Formative assessment is ongoing. It's often observational and it may be ungraded or informal. So when you're teaching your class in person, teachers really are always assessing students, regardless of whether they're awarding them a grade. When you walk around and you see whether they're writing or you're lecturing and you're looking at where are their eyes, you're assessing your students. How engaged are they in the classroom? When you ask them a question and listen to their answer and then provide error correction or feedback, that is a form of assessment. That's formative assessment. The second one, I see a problem on my slide. That should be 2, right? That's summative assessment. And this is a type of formal graded assessment, like a midterm, a final exam. This is usually what students are evaluated on and worried about. Most of the time, students don't even realize that you're doing formative assessments. Okay.
Sorry, Ms. Catherine, but we have in chat, Wafa Timimi mentioned questions, how to avoid cheating in electronic assessment. And second point, I have used Google Forms and FCC in addition to Telegram channel. The third point, before the pandemic, I wasn't use any electronic programs in assessment.
Awesome, thank you. I think what she's doing there actually is sharing her responses to the free writing prompt because she was unable to write in the Google Doc. And I'm glad to hear that because we're actually going to talk a lot about cheating today, because that's a question that's come up both in the Google Doc, but then also in our Google Classroom and in our previous discussions. So if you look on the right, but thank you, Hussein, for letting me know about that. I really appreciate that. Yeah, no, that's great. That is definitely what I would like you to do. On the right-hand side, you'll see a revised Bloom's taxonomy. So Bloom created this educational taxonomy in 1956, and it was updated in the early 2000s and then applied to the study of assessment. And there are basically 6 levels of assessment that become more and more challenging as you move up the taxonomy. The first one is remembering, right? Can you remember? What is the name, for example, for cat in French? The second one is understanding. The third one is applying or actually using the information. The fourth is analyzing information, then evaluating, and then the final and peak level of understanding is creating. Can you create a project? Can you do this on your own? Can you use it in your life without support from a teacher? So common question types kind of can be divided into this sequence, right? You can ask students to identify, label, or name. You can ask them to match things or to put them in a sequence of first, second, third, fourth. You can ask them to apply their knowledge or use it with question words beginning with solve, calculate, or predict. That is not unique, right? This is not unique to language teaching. So even our professor of microbiology can think about these questions in this order, right? Particularly with predict or solve or calculate. Analyze. When you're asking students to analyze things, you might use verbs like organize, compare. You can ask students to evaluate. This is getting up to the top of the taxonomy, right? Measure, can you determine, can you assess? And you can ask them to create things themselves by using question words in your exam, like plan or build or make. Now, informative assessment approaches. Remember, these are the kinds of informal, ongoing assessment that teachers use much more frequently than summative assessments, which are midterms, final exams, or end of unit quizzes that are graded and kind of important for the student's GPA. How do you conduct formative assessment? Well, this is true of both online and in-person teaching. The first thing is to create accessible teaching objectives. So when you're crafting your lessons, you want to think about, all right, how am I going to be able to see whether my students understand and can do what I want them to understand and be able to do? One way that I have taught this to my pre and in-service teachers is by having them write their lesson objectives in terms of what students will be able to do. And we call that a SWBAT, S-W-B-A-T. Students will be able to. And you may have noticed that towards the beginning of the presentations that I have been giving you every week, I use SWBAT objectives, right? What can you do at the end of this? That's my hope, right? Maybe we don't arrive there, but that's my plan. It's accessible. Next, formative assessments often include monitoring individual, pair, and group work as it's completed in your course. So watching, you're just watching your students. This comes from like the field of ethnography, which is a science in and of itself, right? It's not just, oh, I'm looking here, I'm looking there. You're watching your students with a purpose. And you're typically evaluating, okay, what are they doing with my lesson plan objective? And when through observation, you can observe not only whether students are on task or distracted or motivated or not, but you can learn a lot about, okay, this is too hard for them, or they need more help with this, or, oh, they already know this. So monitoring is a big part of formative assessment. Asking comprehension check questions, which in communicative language teaching, we often abbreviate CCQ. And this is really important to all fields, but in language, it's particularly important. This is when throughout your lesson, you might say, okay, stop. What exactly is a scavenger hunt? What is a scavenger? Does anybody know? And then you ask people's opinions or to explain like where their thought process is on what you're doing, what you're teaching. You might say, I don't know, Cape Verde is in Africa. True or false? George Washington was the first president of the United States. Yes or no? Those are all comprehension check questions. Next, low stakes quizzes and polls, like was mentioned earlier. Students and teachers complete quizzes all the time that don't necessarily have a huge, big impact on their grade. And they can be a part of formative assessments. You can use entrance and exit slips. So Ahmed, one of the reasons that I'm not answering all of the questions and going through right now, there's two reasons. One is a time management thing, right? A lot of the answers are contained in this slideshow. So I'm going to go through the slideshow. But the second is I'm using that as an assessment device, which is called entrance and exit slips, where at the beginning of your meeting together, you have the students write out, okay, what do you want to know about this subject? What do you already know about this subject? And at the end, you have them complete a similar activity. What did you learn that was new? What do you still have questions about? So this activity is an entrance and exit slip activity, which is a form of assessment, right? At the end, when I can look through your questions, I can see which questions were answered or not. That informs the teacher about, okay, what should we do next? Like, where are we as a group? And what haven't we answered? What do we still need to look at? Another formative assessment approach that we've done a lot together is asking students to report back from their pair or group work. So after you go away in pairs or groups, you kind of need to know, what did the students do during that time? Did they get what we were talking about? Do they need more help? Were they on task or not? So every time I have you go into your groups, I ask you to report back. I mean, for several reasons. One of them, and the most important one in our context, is so that we can all learn each other's ideas. But another one is to see, okay, were there recurring questions that happen? There's 30 of us here, more or less, right? I can't answer, if 30 people have 5 different questions, that would take all 2 hours to answer those. But what I can do is look at the themes across, and reporting back is one way to approach that. The last thing is, of course, to provide for opportunities for students to ask questions. And you can do that in a couple of ways in online teaching. So in the next slide, we're going to talk about, all right, well, I already know this, Kathleen. I've probably been a teacher for longer than you have in most cases. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how do we adapt these online. The first one, craft accessible teaching objectives. Well, you're lucky because that's exactly the same thing. It really has nothing to do with whether you're online or whether you're in person. You're going to, in your planning phase, think about, okay, what am I going to look for while my students are working? Monitoring. This one is a little more challenging online, especially if you're teaching synchronously, right? Because what's happening right now is I can see my slideshow and I can see myself, but everybody else has their cameras turned off. So I don't know what they're doing. I can't judge by your faces, really. Well, oh gosh, Kathleen, I already know this. This is a waste of my time. Or, oh my gosh, I don't understand this. This is completely new. So it's harder online. But you can ask.
May I comment on this, by the way?
Let's wait.
Camera. Yeah.
Let's wait for a second because I want to make sure we have time to go through all of that. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you have comments or questions, write them in the chat, because I am going to pause and invite you into this in a second. But I just want to make sure first that we don't get too bogged down and not have time to finish everything. So if you have ideas, please take notes with your pen and paper or write them in the Zoom. But I do want to just kind of get through this so that we have time to look at the training videos. So you can ask students to keep their cameras on, but it's important to be aware of equity and cultural issues. So for example, many schools in the United States actually do not allow professors to force students to turn their cameras on, because there are many equity issues, right? Some people are homeless. Some people are living in, a small house with 8 brothers and sisters, and it would be really embarrassing to them to force everyone else to see their very personal space. So a lot of schools in the US, in fact, don't allow this. There are also cultural issues with cameras, which we talked about a little bit on the first day of class. In some cultures, or I mean microcultures here, right? Not broadly, it's not respectful to ask or to broadcast your image. And there are also safety reasons with this as well, right? I know some of you work with refugees. I've spent a lot of my time working with immigrants and refugees as well. And there are ethical issues involved in broadcasting their images on the internet, right? Particularly refugees, if they're political refugees, and could be persecuted or arrested if their government can find them. So that's really important, is to be aware of all of these issues. And there are several reasons not to ask students to turn their cameras on. Let's see, we can also monitor students writing in Google Suites, right? So while you were writing earlier, I was looking at WhatsApp, right, to try to help Dana join us, but is also looking at your Google Doc, right? Okay, are they engaged? Can they access Google Doc or not? What kinds of questions are coming up? So there are ways to monitor students online, just as you would in person. Of course, we can also ask CCQs. So you can randomly call on learners. So I could stop this lesson right now and say, Hussein, what is an example of a formative assessment? But I'm not, Hussein, you don't have to answer that. But it is a nice way to.
Monthly exam.
Yes, thank you. You got it right.
Yes.
Very nice.
Summative final exam.
I love it.
Thank you.
So yeah, you can randomly call on your learners just like you would in class, right? And that you can do that even if you can't see them. You can craft ongoing written responses in your discussion boards. I gave you an example of how I do that with my students, right? This is particularly useful in asynchronous courses. You need to comprehension check your students, and scaffolding them into a routine where they every week are required to demonstrate what they have learned from your lectures or your readings is a key element of formative assessment online. Okay, the next one, quizzes and polls. We can use Kahoot, Zoom polls, and Google Forms to create quick and ungraded quizzes. Kahoot, Zoom, and Google Forms are probably not the best thing for final exams, but they're a wonderful and engaging way to make sure your students are on the same page with you in a formative assessment. Exit slips and self-assessments, we can use the tools of your learning management system like Moodle or Google Classroom. Or you can do what I just did and use Google Docs, right? With the exit, slip, and self-assessment, which I'll talk about later. Reporting back, well, we've done this a lot, right? Assign roles, provide a time limit, ask students to submit their notes as an assignment. And then you can take student questions in many of the same ways that we do, right? Via WhatsApp, via Google Docs, via chat, and by allowing time for questions during synchronous classes. But with the final one, particularly in an online class, you have to be careful with time management because it's impossible to answer 30 people's questions. You know, that would take a half hour at minimum. And imagine some of you have 200 students. So you might want to consider having students compile their questions in a Google Doc that you can then synthesize, find the themes of, and respond to later. All right. I want to just talk briefly about self-assessment, which I mentioned quickly here. Self-assessment is one type of formative assessment where students rate themselves on how well they're doing. And this is something that I incorporate into all of my master's level classes, all of my graduate classes. I ask them to rate themselves on a weekly or every other week basis. Here's the example. It says, okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being poor and 5 being exceptional, how do you rate your personal commitment to the materials this week? Consider the following. Did you read and view all of the materials? Did you take time to reflect on and digest the materials? Did you complete your reading, viewing, analysis, that's their assignment, or one of their assignments, in a quality manner? So they rate themselves 1 to 5 on a scale. They also provide an explanation of why they are giving themselves this rating. Next, they rate their contributions to the course. So they each have a group that they're working with. This is an asynchronous course online, and they have to tell me, okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, how did you do with your group? Did you do the viewings and readings before your group had to submit their discussion? Did you make good contributions? Did you fulfill your commitment to the group? And at the end, they have a chance to provide their comments to me. Now, maybe you're thinking, well, obviously students are going to lie on these. Yes, that's true, right? It's very rare that a student says, oh, I did terribly. But this provides them a chance to tell me You know, what I often get in these is, I'm so sorry. I know I did a bad job this week. It's because I was moving and I didn't have enough time to study. So another type of comment that I get on these is, I tried to read and view all of the materials, but they were just too hard for me. Can you help me? So if you're using these, it's important to remember that, of course, like, yeah, you can't base your grades of your students off of these. This is a formative assessment for them to inform you really about problems or issues, or also successes that they're having in your course, and to adapt your teaching based on what you find from them. Now, I know several of you have used Kahoot before, and I saw that, I think Van wrote in his entry slip, right, in the Google Doc in the beginning, saying, oh, how do I assess my students without using Kahoot? So this may be, Van, it sounds like you already know this. I know several other people do too. Others have asked about it. I'm gonna end my share for a moment and ask you all to join a Kahoot. So if you are doing this on your phone, if you're on Zoom on our phone, you are probably going to be unable to join our Kahoot. So you can just watch. If you're doing it on your computer, what you need is your smartphone. So you're going to go to your smartphone and you're going to go to www.kahoot.it. And when you get there, it is going to ask you to enter a code. And I would like you to enter the code. Okay. Is anyone having trouble finding our Kahoot?
Can you please just repeat the site?
Sure, it's right here on this slide. Kahoot, actually, I can also put it in the chat.
Thank you.
So you can just copy and paste. Let me stop sharing this for now. I'm going to put this in the chat. Did any questions come up while I was giving a lecture? No? All right, awesome. So you should have that in the chat right now. I only see 2 players.
Well, excuse me, Kathleen.
Mm-hmm.
Amani is speaking. I can't enter the Kahoot.
Are you on your phone?
Well, I'm using my phone to enter Kahoot only. I'm
Okay,
listening
great.
to you from my computer.
Okay,
The
so
problem, I think, with the code.
I think the code is okay. So let me see, because I did test this beforehand. So if you click www.kahoot.it.
The same
yes,
problem here. So it's just the problem with the code.
This is so strange.
It is inaccessible, by the way. It is inaccessible.
Oops, hold on. You're right, it is I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. It is inaccessible. I need to give you the updated code. I closed out of Kahoot last night. So the new code is 7694493. I'm sorry about that, Amani.
No, it's okay.
You were totally correct. So when you come here to kahoot.it, you should be able to ask students to enter the code. I can share. my
Sorry, Ms.
screen.
Catherine, but how care Omar said, do we need to sign up if it is first time we use it?
No, you don't
No,
need
no,
to sign
just
up, which is a nice aspect of Kahoot. It's totally free for people who are taking the quizzes. You just navigate to this site and enter the code.
so they need to hit play, then they enter the code.
Ah, thank you, Nachirvan.
Yes, yes.
And then you also need to enter your nickname, I think, right?
Yeah, after you enter the code, you have to enter a nickname.
Mhm. Is anyone having trouble still getting into our Kahoot? What's happening in our WhatsApp group?
This one? This is the code that
I
I
s-
have.
I send them screens for mobile to access the Kahoot.
What did you say, Mohammed?
I send them the website of Kahoot on WhatsApp.
Great. Okay.
Well, still it is inaccessible to me.
Okay. So did you go to kahoot.it on
Well,
your,
the page itself did not open. I mean, the main page, I mean, kahoot.it. I don't know whether because of the internet weak connection.
Mr. Ahmed, it's because of the internet connection. I had the same issue and I disconnected and then came back and I was able to
awesome.
to open the screen. So there is internet connection issues that you have.
Well,
Okay, the
well,
same problem. I think
I don't like just to disconnect and then connect. I don't like this. Because
on your
you see,
phone though, right? Not on your computer.
Yeah, it's on your phone.
No, it's my computer. My phone is bad. I cannot use it.
So you can't use Kahoot on your computer.
I cannot use. Yeah.
Yeah, you must be in your phone to use Kahoot.
No, my phone is not. I mean, okay, just to use.
So then you're not going to participate in this activity. Okay?
Yeah.
So you can watch the activity.
Yeah,
You
it's
can
okay.
only
It's
participate on your phone.
Yeah.
Is anyone else having issues joining our Kahoot?
yes, till now I'm not joining.
Hussein?
Yes, I have not said sorry that nickname is taken. I have used computer and desktop.
Sorry, that nickname.
Meanwhile, in my phone, see your nickname on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And in computer said sorry that nickname is taken. Both of them it does not work.
Interesting. Try giving yourself Gumar as a nickname.
And when can I put this name? There is no option.
So navigate out and go back to the site or refresh the site, the Kahoot site.
Okay.
On your phone, right? So not on your computer.
Okay.
Kathleen,
Mahmoud.
I signed in from my computer. Is it okay?
You did?
Yeah. And
Sure. I
I'm
mean,
in.
we'll see
Yeah.
if it's okay. It's really designed to work on mobile platforms. It's designed for mobile phones.
I'm using my laptop also. I didn't enter from my phone.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, we're going to see how well it works.
Okay.
We'll see.
I mean, with my phone, but it works with the laptop.
Awesome.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Hussein, are you in our Kahoot?
Until now, I'm not access. Let me to take not Safari, Google. Very honest.
Who here has used Kahoot before in their teaching?
I use it.
Yes, I did several times.
So Hiro and Nachirvan, can you help them join the Kahoot?
Well,
Let's go.
okay, go ahead, Hero. Well, it is just, you access the website and then you hit play and you enter the code. After that, you create a nickname for yourself, and then you join.
Let's see what happens.
Sorry, Nichivan, after we give the nickname, we get a question, see your nickname on screen. After
then
that,
you wait. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, we have to wait.
Yes, until we start.
Okay.
All right. Awesome. I see him here. Great. Okay. So what's going to happen is this game was actually designed prior to the pandemic to be used during classes as well as in online teaching. It's a platform to administer polls and quizzes to your students. You create them ahead of time, and then you share them with your learners. You can do that when you're teaching in person as well, because the game was initially designed to be played with a cell phone. Apparently you can also use them on the web. I didn't know that. What we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and press start, and it's going to come up with a series of questions. You are going to respond to the questions by tapping the box with the same color and image as the answer that you would like to select, either on your phone if you're playing on your phone, or on your computer if you're playing on the computer. Are there any questions before we begin? You're going to have 20 seconds to answer each question. All right, let's go.
So what's the question here?
What are the two types of assessment called? So you got to look at the Zoom screen to see the question, right? What are the two types?
The upper of the.
Called? All right, that's so the correct answer: formative and summative assessment.
So we have. Yeah, so there's a limit of time. We have time's up.
Plus, I didn't know that I have to look in on the Zoom screen as well.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. That's no problem at all. We're doing this just to experiment. We have more questions. All right. So let's go to the next question. So look at the Zoom screen and it will give you the question, true or false. Okay. Hero is winning our game. Congratulations, Hero. The next one.
Thank you.
Asking a student a question during your lecture is an example of a summative assessment. True or false?
Oh, this is really interesting.
Kahoot?
Yes.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's wonderful. It's a great way to, it's not a great way really to administer final exams, but it's a wonderful way to keep students engaged during the lesson. And it's free. Although if you want to use like all of its features, you have to pay, but I created this totally for free. So asking a student a question during your lecture is an example of a summative assessment. That is false, right? Summative assessment is the big final exam. All right, scoreboard. Hero, I don't think anybody's going to catch you. Which of these online tools will let you make quizzes for your students? Questions or possible responses: Kahoot, Zoom polls, Google Forms, or all of them? All right, 20 seconds out of time. All of them. Okay, that is correct. So you can use Kahoot, but you can also use Zoom polls and Google Forms.
All of them.
All of them.
Mhm.
All right. Is student cheating a big concern for you? This is a personal question, right? So there's no
Yes.
right or wrong answer. You can see the timer over here, about to be out of time. Yes and no, an equal split almost. That's interesting. And then finally, the last question, how comfortable do you feel with online assessment? This is a personal question again. There's no right answer. Red, great. Blue, pretty good. Yellow, not so good. And green, terrible. Got 2 terrible, 2 great, 2 not so good, and 7 pretty goods. All right, that's not so bad.
I got prize.
Hiro, your prize is your pride and everyone's respect and admiration. All right, so this is an example of Kahoot. Oh no, I navigated away from it.
Show the result. Okay.
Oh, you want Hiro wants to see the.
No, I know for others. Why to the result?
Mohammed,
It was new. It was new for us, most of us. For me, it was, yeah, it's new.
Ah, bravo.
So the spotlight.
Congratulations, Hero.
Congratulations.
Simply because she is a hero.
I said what you show the others one to use this one.
Yeah, and so I think Hiro is also really familiar with this type of format, right? So a lot of you are saying, this is the first time I'm using Kahoot. Where am I looking? What am I doing? So just very quickly, to make a Kahoot.
Also, you can put the picture or the video and other things for the quizzes.
Exactly.
When you created the question of the Kahoot.
Yeah, you can.
For me, I could answer all the questions, but I couldn't take it at the same time. I don't know why. It doesn't take it from me.
Were you on your internet, on your computer?
Yes.
I think that might be why. Kahoot is much better when you're using a cell phone.
Okay. Yes. Otherwise, I did it. All the questions was right for me. It's okay. But no one worked to have the tick, the exact tick.
Yeah. And that's a thing, right? So that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why it's so important with Kahoot, with any online tool. You don't want to start off assessing your students with it. I know that some of you got questions wrong, not because you didn't know the answers to the questions, but because this was a new online tool for you. So whenever you start or introduce a new platform, a new online tool, you don't want to make it a summative assessment yet. You can make it formative, right? This is how we're, oh yeah, how are they doing? How does it work? But not a summative assessment. All right, so.
Sorry, Kathy. Sorry, can you reset the time for answering the question, or it is set already and there's no way to reset the time?
You can reset the time. Yeah, you can make it, I think, any amount of time that you want. So if you want to use Kahoot, you can sign up for free. You have to make an account and log in, and then you just press create a new Kahoot, add a question. I'm going to add, so you can choose quiz, that's multiple choice, true or false. When you do the more advanced questions, this is where they make their money, and this is what you have to pay for. So the ones without the icon in the top right are free. Quiz, True or false? So what's the best pet? You type your question up here, add answer, cat, dog. I'm just typing, right? Llama, that's not how you spell llama. Or peacock. You can go to the image library, and if you pay to use Kahoot, you can get a lot more images, but I don't really see a need to pay to use Kahoot. You can just click this image and click, okay, add another question, true or false. You can also edit the question's time limit. So I had it set at 20 seconds, but you can set it up to 1 minute. And you can also change how the points are displayed. So you could make one question worth double points or one question worth no points at all. I'm going to ask you, though, to hold on to your questions right now, take a minute and jot them down. I'm going to give you a break. And when we come back, we're going to move on to summative assessments. And then tomorrow, you're going to use these tools yourselves. So were there any questions, like technical questions in the chat or WhatsApp group?
There is nothing in WhatsApp.
All right, let's take a 5-minute break. So you're going to come
So there is
back.
nothing in chat of Zoom.
Thank you, Hussein. So I think, what time is it there? 3:13. You're going to come back to me at 3:18.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 2 more minutes, right, for your break. But if you're here and you have any questions about the first portion of the lecture, I'm happy to answer them while we kind of relax together during the break.
Well, it's about Kahoot. Well, I believe that this tool is not, widely used by all Iraqi teachers for online, learning. So I believe if it is possible, just to emphasize Google Forms, the way that we make a question and quizzes, this will be, better because we normally use it all, and it is, by the way, it is decided by the Ministry of Higher Education just to have this platform to be used in teaching and in making exams. So,
all right.
Is it better just to to emphasize this from now on? I believe that it would be so beneficial for us, okay, because we use it and it is formally decided by the ministry, by university. You see, to use Google Classroom platform and Google Forms as a tool for making quizzes and examinations.
Can I say something,
Yes,
Kathleen?
Nashirvan.
Just a comment on Mr. Hamza's point. Here, the difference between Kahoot and Google Documents is really huge. So Kahoot is just like a game. It's really fun, right? So you give it to your students. They're having fun while answering the questions. And you cannot do it for formal final examinations or midterm exams. Maybe for short quizzes, 5% quizzes or 2% quizzes, or even a fun activity to give it to your students. While I don't think that Kahoot should be decided by the Ministry of the Higher Education so that we can use it inside our classes. Once I asked my students to download it on their phones, normally most of them did, and it was pre-pandemic. Then inside the class, we took like 15 minutes. I created a quiz and they did it on their mobiles. And it was really fun. They really engaged with the task.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, personally, I cannot access it today. If it is impossible for me to access, how can I ask my students to access?
Right. So
yeah.
Although you couldn't participate, right, because your phone isn't maybe I don't know, a smartphone or connected to the internet or having technical problems, you can still play along, right? You can see the questions via the screen share. You just can't answer them.
Yeah, it's not the problem just to practice it today, but to use it, in the future. I believe that if it is inaccessible to me, okay, and I have personal problem with these things, how can I use it with my students?
So if you don't feel comfortable using it, you definitely don't have to use Kahoot, right? But this is one.
So here the problem, why to have it? Why to have it? Why not just to emphasize Google Forms rather than going to Kahoot?
So I think, as Nechirvan said and Hosan I see said in the chat as well, there's a difference, right, between what you're talking about and the purpose of Kahoot. Kahoot is a formative assessment, right? This is not, and formative assessments are ongoing, they're informal, they're often fun, they're classroom activities. So this is not mandated by the Ministry of Higher Education, because you would not use Kahoot to administer a final exam. And what we're going to do in the second half of this class is talk about summative assessments, which you can do with Google Forms and also a couple of other things. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to move on and I'm going to share my screen.
Excuse me, Dr. Kathleen?
Yes?
Excuse me. Well, I think that I don't agree with Mr. Hamza's opinion, because you know that sometimes the online teaching is somehow boring. So we use those tools just like Kahoot in order to be free to change the mood of our students. Actually, it was a very interesting way of changing the mood of our students. I really like it.
Totally
Thank you so
agree.
much.
Yeah,
And
it's
so-
an activity. It's
Yeah,
not.
if you
It's
have
not.
time, if you have time, but you see, our time is very limited for these things. You see, our timetable is very, I mean, overloaded. We
Well,
have
if you do
different
it,
lectures. We have different.
if you do it once a month just for fun, I don't think that will harm your schedule. I didn't know, this is my first time using it, but I'm looking forward to use it with my students because it's just like a new thing. They will have fun. They will be interested to enter my class because I'm bringing up new activities and new things. So think of it like that way. It's not it's a formative, activity. It's not really something really summative. So
Yes, you are right, Ms. Wafa. I'm thinking of doing with my students the same activity of Kahoot.
Yeah, and this is again like a way to engage your students, right? A way to motivate them, a way to like change the mood, as someone said before. But we're going to move on right now. I appreciate everyone sharing your opinions. And again, what you take from this is your choice, right? So we do the activities and then you take the ones that you feel work best for your context and students. So I'm going to share my screen back again to our slideshow. Let me see, presenter view. Whoops, no, sorry. Play from, no. There we go. Okay. One just final note on Kahoot. I know some of you have like 200 students in your classroom. You can only play Kahoot with up to 50 players. So you could make, it would be very hard to do with more than 50 students in your class. It's possible, but it would be a challenge. All right, let's come back. Summative assessment. So what Dr. Hamza is talking about here with his emphasis on, well, the Ministry of Higher Education says this, and we have limited time, we have to reach our learning objectives, we have to measure our students. Well, those are summative assessments, which are a different type of assessment. They include—
Catherine, Hazan said, I agree with Mr. Nijervan, and Ala said, looking forward to use it too. He's in this
Awesome.
chat.
Thank you, Hussein. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Great. So, so for summative assessments, this is what Dr. Hamza is talking about. Comprehensive examinations, midterms, final exams, and then at the graduate level, writing your dissertation or thesis. This is an example of a summative assessment. These are graded and high stakes for both students and teachers, because this is what they're evaluated on. What question formats do summative assessments often use? Well, a lot of them are the same as formative assessments, but they're not usually observational. Usually we ask our students to write essays, answer open-ended questions, multiple choice questions, true or false, solve equations, etc. So considerations for summative assessments. Here, equity and access are really important. So Dr. Hamza said, how can I use this with my students? I had trouble accessing it. For Kahoot, I say, this is not really a big problem, right? If most of your students can access it, the others can watch and follow along. That is not the case with summative assessments, right? If you're evaluating your students and assigning them a grade that will impact their grade point average or their future, everyone in your class needs to be able to access the platform equitably. So they have equal access, right? Some considerations that I've heard brought up multiple times in our time together is, well, how do you prevent students from cheating online? We're going to talk about that today. How do you prevent plagiarism? And then we're going to talk about the tools of proctoring and timing. So a question for you to consider kind of in your minds as we go forward is, in what ways does administering summative assessments differ online from in person? Actually, what time is it? Yeah, I think we can give 2 minutes to discussing that question. Does anyone have any ideas? How does it differ to administer these tests online from in person?
Actually, they send questions more than one, like essay on multiple choice, definition, approximately 5 questions, and they sent us images, make PDF and send on Classroom. This is the final exam for us that we use it.
As for the summative assessments, Dr. Kathleen, you know, usually at the university we have examination committee, you know, a group of people administering the whole faculty exams. So there are in each hall we have 3 to 4 proctors. It is, you know, they are physically there. So it gives them full control over everything in the hall. So the chance for students to cheat or to copy from each other is just like 0%. While in online assessments, actually, this is really, really difficult. Unless, as Mr. Hadi the other day said, if we give some characteristics to our quizzes or exams on Google Form, like not to get out on the website, or to put timing like you did in Kahoot, it will, you know, reduce the chance for cheating, but it will not make it 0%.
That's
It's really,
true.
really difficult. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, with regard to cheating, by the way, I believe it depends on the type of questions. You see, I did my final examination. I mean, I organized my final examination for essay writing, but I put certain types of a question in the way that it needs some sort of evaluation analysis. And that's why 84 students failed in the final examination out of 189, approximately half of the number of students. Although there is a good opportunity for cheating, but cheating for what? Well, they cannot cheat things for analysis. They cannot cheat things for evaluation. And that's why we have 89 students who failed in the final examination. One of them took 10 out of 50.
That's a really good point, and that connects to something we're going to talk about in a second. Thank you. Wafa, I see you raised your hand. Did you want to contribute something?
Yeah, I just wanted to answer the question. Also concerning time in administrating the summative assessment online and in person is different. Like in person, we are so strict with time. I mean, the exam will start at that time and it will end at that time, and we will collect the papers, or, you know, if we're in person. But let's be honest, from my own experience, when I'm doing this online, I actually give extra time because some students will enter because they don't have internet connection, something like that. And also, even when time finishes, I say time has finished, submit your answers. But honestly speaking, I will give them extra time because some students will have problems with submitting, you know, sometimes like we have now, sometimes we have, you know, I wanted to answer the questions in Kahoot. I had some unstable connection in the internet. So that will happen to students also. So I will tell them that time is finished, but I will give them extra time to submit their answers, while that I won't do in person.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are all really good points. And I see one other person with their hand raised. Let's take one more answer to the question and then we'll move on. So Wafa Al Tamimi.
Yes, dear Kathleen, I'd like to add something to what my colleagues have already said concerning the differences or among the differences between the administration summative assessment online or in person. When we have, let's say, in-person examinations, we can prevent students from helping each other. But when we have this kind of assessments or in online, we cannot prevent them from helping each other. And this is a crucial and important point we have to pay special attention to. For instance, when I provide my students with Google form and the type of question is MCQ, they always take screenshots and they send that screenshot for the solution to their own groups, and they helping each other. So the ratio of cheating is too high. That's why I always try to minimize the time of the exam in order not to give them the chance to help each other by giving screenshot to each other.
And that's a good, I mean, that is definitely a really good strategy. Thank you. Everything you've said kind of plays into the column on the right? Timing is different. Students may have connectivity issues, and to make it equitable, you may need to provide them with some extra time, or you may need to provide them with some time prior to taking the assessment to experiment with the platform that you're giving the assessment in if they're unfamiliar with it. Students can sometimes open other tabs on their browser, right? So you don't necessarily want students to be able to navigate to other internet sites as they are as they're taking your summative assessment. So some ways around this are, you can have students record their screens, you can have students record themselves, their audio, limit test taking attempts, and randomize the questions and also the answers in the tests. So we're going to look at some different ways to do that. Minimizing cheating in online assessments. First, I'm going to say Dr. Hamza brought up a really good point. Some recent research in online examinations shows that professors and teachers have a perception that cheating is much more prevalent in exams online, but that's not necessarily proven to be the case. So that might be more of an anxiety on the part of the teacher in some cases than an actual practice, but it is certainly a concern. It's a big concern during the pandemic. So another strategy mentioned was, well, personalize the questions. If you ask certain types of questions, like Dr. Hamza mentioned, most of my students failed the test. Well, that's probably because he designed a test that it was really difficult to cheat on. And you can do that by personalizing questions, right? So students can't simply, like, if I send you a screenshot and we're both students taking the test, my screenshot is not going to help you answer this question, because you're required to draw on and incorporate your own analysis and experience. So that's drawing from the higher end of the revised Bloom's taxonomy. These are questions that ask students to draw from their own experiences or bring in their own insights. You can't, for instance, really cheat when you're writing a dissertation or a master's thesis. You could plagiarize portions, but the point of those is to put together a coherent argument that is unique to your worldview. So that's one way to minimize cheating. The next thing is to randomization, designing tests so that each student receives the questions in a different order, or that the answers to each question appear in a different order for each student. And that can help with the screenshot issue. If students are sending screenshots, but my answer A is different from your answer A, well, that's not going to help them. You can hire online proctoring sites. have a person or a software program observe test takers, much like you do in person. As I think Neshravan provided the example of, well, you know, the same set of proctors in person monitors the whole hall of students. There are also online proctoring devices, and we'll talk about those a little bit in a second. For example, TOEFL, that's one proctored test, and TOEFL now is proctored online. There's plagiarism software, and these are programs or websites that can detect whether and how much of a text that your students have written was taken from another source. And finally, there are computer programs that will take over your computer's video and audio recording, so their webcam and their microphone. And you can ask students to submit video recordings of their test taking. So Open Broadcaster software is one piece of software that will allow students for free to record everything that happens on their screen during a test. And you can ask students to submit that. Now that's free, but it's probably not the best method because video and audio recordings take up so much memory space on your computer. If you have 30 people submit a 1 hour long video, that's going to eat up an awful lot of memory on your computer. It's also going to eat up so much data when your students try to send you those videos. That would probably have to be done on Google Drive or Dropbox. So we're going to look at some other options today. First of all, in randomization, the concept here is randomization presents cheating because each student sees questions in a different order. And typically this is done with multiple choice answers. And those answers can present in a different order for each student. So this happens on Google Forms. Google Forms will randomize questions. If you have an institutional account, that means, so one reason why I think it's important to bring in everyone's individual experiences here, you all have access to different programs via your institution. If you have an institutional Google Classroom, so this is a Google, oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I got a message saying my internet connection is unstable. So I'm glad that
your eyes breaking sometime.
Okay. What was I talking about? Oh, right. If you have a Google Classroom account through your institution that's official, you have access to a lot more features of Google Classroom than, for instance, I do. I don't have an institutional Google account, so I can only use what's free. So in your institutional account, you can use Google Forms in locked mode, which means that people, that there are external...
Ms. Kathleen.
Hussein?
Yes, we have you have a problem in the internet. We didn't hear what you said.
Oh no,
before,
all right.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm also going to, I'm going to connect via my hotspot as well. Sometimes I lose internet on Wi-Fi hotspot. Let me join via my phone. Can you still hear me for now?
Okay, if you don't mind, can you repeat the last point if you don't mind, because we didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, I hope I can remember what my last point was. Okay, it looks like my internet is...
It talks about actually good formal account.
All right, so many of these tools, Google, Schoology, e-learning commons, Moodle, they have different versions, one that's free and one that you have to pay for. And typically it's the institution, so your university, or for public school teachers, the school district, that buys the account for all of the teachers. So if you have access through your university or college to a platform, you may have more options than people who don't have access via their institution, who are just using the free version. So for instance, my Google Classroom that I've created for you, I have access via my institutions to e-learning commons and Blackboard, but not institutional access to Google Classrooms. So I don't have access to locked mode. So one kind of thing to consider as you look through all of these tools is how much access you will have to each of these tools will depend a lot on how your institution set up online learning. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen to show how you can randomize questions on Google Forms to prevent or try to prevent student cheating. All right. Can you see the video?
Yes.
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 All right, here we go.
Yes, it's okay.
Hi, I'm Richard Byrne. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can set your Google Forms to show a different question order to every student who opens up your Google Forms based quiz, and also how you can randomize the answer choices. So let's take my sample quiz we have here, and you'll see my first question is, who is the greatest quarterback of all time? It's Tom Brady, if you didn't know. And I'm going to have the sequence of options randomized. So in the bottom right corner next to the required button for the question, it's a little menu. Open that up, and you'll see shuffle option order. You can turn it on or turn it off. You have to turn it on for every question that you want to have the answer choices shuffled for. So you can see that one there. I didn't have it turned on yet. So you turn that on. Now, shuffling the order of answer choices doesn't impact your answer key. So your students, regardless of which order the options appear in, will still be marked correct if they, in this case, answer Washington for this question, no matter where Washington appears in the list of 3 items. Now, if you want to have the questions appear in a random order to each student who opens up your Google Forms quiz, in the upper right corner, go to Settings, and under Presentation, select the option for Shuffle Question Order. Turn that on or turn that off. Now, if you do this and you're using Go to Section based on answer for a question, that can break the logic that you've previously created. So if you're using Go to Section based on answer, you want to turn that option off. But otherwise, if all your questions are on one page of a Google form or one section of a Google form, you can certainly have them appear in a random order to all of your students.
Okay, so what he just went through is free. Oh, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, doctor, we do use shuffling in our exams, but I don't think that this is a very good way for students, because they control this this way, and they know that we shuffle a question and change order for them, and they have a 3 hours exam. So they the time is unlimited. They can talk to each other, and they close their cameras and audio for us. So they can talk to each other using WhatsApp or other tools, and they can solve the questions.
Can I answer?
Hussein, go ahead, and then I'm going to let Sadiq speak.
Yes, you can work on this. It is a simple. Make a limited time, 1 hour, and give them more than one option. That's it.
Yep.
The exam is the exam lasts us for 3 hours.
We can't control the time because it is
We can.
decided from.
There is option. There is
from
option. Game
the-
limited time. 1 hour. I have used this. There is
No, no.
option in this exam, in this form. There is option. Give 1 hour, 2 hours, half hour.
No,
You can make this.
we can
Just-
we can do so in quizzes and in quizzes and midterm exam, but in final
I have done
exam,
this. I
the
have
final
done with
exam,
with
yes, the
monthly
time
exam.
is 3 hours. It is not
I
our
can
decision.
Wait, Hussein, hold on. So I think one thing that's happening here is that, remember, you all teach in different institutions with different requirements. So Hussein, you're offering a really wonderful idea that obviously works well in your context, and limiting the timing is a great strategy for that. But it may not apply to Thana's context. I saw Sadiq raised his hand. Sadiq?
Thank you, Kathleen. It's a good way to shuffle the questions. The only problem we have, if we have more than 1 or 2 sections for the same questions, the problem is that when you shuffle the questions, you are getting some question going from one section into another section. So if you have 3 sections, one for blanks, filling the blanks, the second for, say, for example, true, false. If you shuffle all the questions, you are going to get some questions from the blanks into the true, false. And this will make the students somehow confused. Thank you.
Right, that's a good point. So you can only shuffle questions, or it's only really advised to shuffle questions on Google Forms if you have one section. There may be ways to shuffle within a section, but that would be something that you would have to research a little bit on Google. I see Mahmoud and Wafa have questions, but I want to make it through the presentation. So I'm going to ask, or comments maybe you have, I'm going to ask you to note them down, and I'm going to continue. And then tomorrow, I'm going to provide lots of opportunities for you to share your own experiences and ideas. So I'm going to move on for now, just to make sure that we get through the proctoring. And tomorrow, we're going to talk, oh my gosh, I keep pressing the wrong thing. We're going to talk about this a little bit more. So another strategy that you can use is proctoring. This is a timed test where the test itself can close after a certain amount of time. Proctoring software or websites will report to teachers what other websites or tabs did students visit during the exam. It can record the desktop, and it can even use the student's webcam to record them while they're taking the test. Now, many, in fact, learning management systems have proctoring sites that are already paid for. For example, Schoology, Blackboard, and eLearning Commons all offer proctoring sites as a part of most of their packages that your institution would have to pay for. To know if you have access via your institution to a proctoring site, you should conduct your own Google search. You're going to type in your institution's learning management system to the search bar. So you might type Moodle proctoring or Google Classrooms proctoring, and look at what proctoring tools are available. But first, for those of you who aren't sure whether you have a proctoring site, you can use or experiment with AutoProctor. AutoProctor works with Google Forms. You can install it at the link on this slide. After you click Install, you click Accept, and the plugin will allow you to administer a test 50 times. So this is a company, right? They want your money. They'll give you 50 free trials, and after that you have to pay. But despite that, I am going to share this video with you and show you how, in general, proctoring sites can work to minimize cheating.
Hello there. This video will tell you how to use AutoProctor and what the different settings mean.
If you haven't yet installed the AutoProctor Google Forms add-on, click the link in the description below to first install it. These are the main steps involved in using AutoProctor. You open AutoProctor, configure the test settings, copy the generated test link, and share it with the test takers. Once the test has been completed, you can view the results of the test. AutoProctor generates a trust score for each test, depending on the number of violations the test taker has committed. You open AutoProctor by clicking on this icon on the right of your screen and then clicking on AutoProctor. Then click on Settings and wait for the Settings sidebar to load. You should see 3 tabs at the top: Main, Timer, and Proctor. This number tells you how many test attempts are left on your account. You can click on the link to buy more test attempts. If Enable Timer is selected, the test will have a timer feature. Similarly, with Enable Proctor. This number tells you the maximum number of times the test taker can attempt the test. For example, if the number is 1, they can open the test link only once. When you open AutoProctor for the first time on any form, a test link gets created automatically. This is the link you share with the test takers. If you use Google Classrooms and want to see the results based on the classroom, you can use this drop-down. Once you choose the classroom, the test link gets updated. You can share the updated link with your students. Clicking this button will copy the test link. You can then paste the link on an email, WhatsApp, etc. Clicking on this tab will open the timer settings. This number is the time duration of the test in minutes. The student will see a countdown timer for this duration. You can also choose a start date for the test. Similarly, a start time. If you set these fields, the test taker cannot attempt the test before the start date and time. In the same way, if the end date and time are set, the test taker cannot attempt the test after the end date and time. If this is selected, the test automatically closes after the test duration. If the test taker has not submitted the test until then, all of the students' responses will be lost. So be very careful about selecting this. If this is not selected, the user can take as much time as they want after the test duration to submit the answers. You will then see the response as a late submission in your report. Do not forget to click on Update Settings to update all your changes. To configure the different Proctor settings, click on this tab. If this is selected, we will track when a test taker switches to a different tab on the browser, like Google, or to a different application. That is, you know how long the user has been away from the test screen. If this is enabled, AutoProctor will use the test taker's camera to ensure that only one person is taking the test. Every time there is no face detected or more than one face detected, AutoProctor will capture a photo as evidence. Enabling this setting means that AutoProctor monitors the noise levels and records an audio when it becomes noisy. This setting allows AutoProctor to take a few random photos as the user is taking the test. You can then review these photos once the test has been submitted. This setting allows image and audio files to be stored on the cloud and to be made available to you to review later. If this is disabled, we will not store any image or audio files, but will just track the violations and give the test attempt a trust score. Enabling this means that the user gets real-time notifications of their violations. If this is disabled, the user won't be notified of any violations that are being recorded. Again, do not forget to click on Update Settings to update all your changes.
All right. So AutoProctor is just one example, right, of a proctoring software that can look at, are your students navigating to other sites? Are they talking to other people? Even are they looking away from the camera at WhatsApp? So that's one option for you. Then I gotta go back here, presenter view. The final strategy is a plagiarism detection. This is software that can detect whether a student has plagiarized from published work or other students' work. And just like proctoring, different institutions have different learning management systems that are already paid for. For example, Google Classroom has Google Originality, which we'll look at in a second, but only if you are paying for Google Classroom through an institution. Blackboard and ELC have their own plagiarism websites. If you are not on a learning management system that has a plagiarism detection service built in, you need to be careful of free plagiarism websites or any website that asks you or your students to upload files, because there's a large chance, especially if it's free, that they might steal the information for other uses. Okay, so Google Originality is the example that I'm going to show of a plagiarism site. And again, this is only available with Google Plus institutional accounts that are paid for. So it's not available on free Google accounts. This allows both students and teachers to check work for plagiarism. And it compares again against published work and other students' work. The advantage of an institution comparing, buying a plagiarism software is that as students across the university complete their exams, plagiarism software will remember the students' answers. So it can detect plagiarism across different students at the same institution, which is a big plus. But I'm going to navigate over here very quickly. I think we're not going to have time probably to do the wrap up activity, but that's okay. I'm going to share this, and tomorrow we will listen more to your questions and insights. So let's watch this and then I'll dismiss our meeting.
This tutorial will show you how you can use originality reports, which are available in Google Assignments as well as Google Classroom. To get started, make sure originality reports are turned on for that particular project. You can enable originality reports when you create a new project or after a project has been assigned. In this example, we'll be in an existing project in assignments where we need to turn on originality reports to assess plagiarism as a student and as an instructor. To turn on the originality report in an existing project, find the archive of your class's assigned projects. Go into the desired project by clicking its title. In the assignments window, find originality reports and click the circle to the right of it to turn it on. This will let students scan their own work up to 3 times before turning it in and will automatically provide you with a report for each student file submitted for this assignment. Next, let's quickly go over how a student uses originality reports. Once a student adds a file to the project, they can click Run Originality Report to run a report. It may take up to a minute to process as it's searching for matches across the entire web. If you have a G Suite Enterprise for Education account, it will also search your institution's collection of student work to assess any student-to-student plagiarism. If the report finds web matches, the student can open the report to explore further. They can then edit the assignment to make any needed revisions or to add citations. Once finished, the student then submits the assignment for grading. Now we'll take a look at how the instructor can use originality reports. When you open a submission, you'll see the file name listed in the right panel. If the report found any passages that might be plagiarized, the number of flagged passages will be listed under the file name. Click the notification to see the report. You can view the flagged passages as a number or as a percentage. This is the default number view. The flagged passages in the document are highlighted in gray. To examine flagged passages, click the highlighted text to display the student's passage right above the web match in the right column. Click the link under the web match to go directly to the online source for further exploration. Originality reports surface matches existing on the World Wide Web, and for G Suite Enterprise and Education users, it also surfaces matches within your school's student work repository, but it's up to you to determine if intentional plagiarism has occurred. Educators have access to up to 5 runs per course. For example, if they wanted to check for plagiarism on midterm papers, final papers, and group projects, those could be the 5 runs. For unlimited scans, your school needs to have a G Suite Enterprise for Education account. We hope you found this tutorial helpful. Remember.
Okay, So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm sorry that we haven't had a chance to get to everyone's questions and comments, but we're going to talk about this more tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to continue on with your personal reactions to each of these tools, how you can or maybe can't use them in your own contexts, and any questions that you have. These training videos and other resources are posted to our Google Classroom, so you can access those yourselves at any time. And I think tomorrow we'll start with just a brainstorm of your questions. So if you had a question or comment that you wanted to share but didn't have time, please just write it down on a piece of paper, keep it near your computer, and tomorrow we will talk about them. For now, I have to run. Thank you so much for your attention and your participation, and we will continue this discussion tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.